Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we'll be talking about the Phoenix Suns season expectations and preview. So, before we start, obviously, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think? Or not think, but why do you guys think this season will go the way that you think? Expectations and everything. Jordan Ott. Hmm. Jalen Green. Hmm. Dillon Brooks. Hmm. Brian Gregory. By the way, Brian Gregory is like 5'6". Nothing like height means nothing. All right. Like I'm 6'1", not the tallest guy. I'm like average. But what I'll say is I was shocked when I walked by him in like the tunnels of Summer League. They have like behind the arenas. He, you like look down at him, and just usually like most like when I saw Ansi Sala or Saleh, I think it's actually how you say it, not like Robert Sala. I think Saleh is how you say the Atlanta Hawks general manager's name, but either way, that's not the point of this video. What we will be talking about is what do we think about them? So, I don't think this is a full rebuild yet. I think they have Devin Booker, who's a franchise worthy cornerstone, and they're just pivoting, they're retooling. Now, if things get worse, then you got to go into a full rebuild because you probably end up having to trade Devin Booker and cash in on his value. But I think they're understanding that instead of star chasing, let's have like a more homegrown approach. And as a result, they head into this season 4 years removed from a finals run with a different ownership. And the franchise moved on from Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, another coach in Mike Budenholzer, and the new GM Brian Gregory. Jordan Ott is the new coach who inherits a young roster. The situation in Phoenix has been volatile, but Booker remaining as the face of the franchise is better than having nobody while this roster is in a work in progress. I do like them keeping Colin Gillespie because I think they're going to run point guard by committee, even though their point guard situation is up in the air because I really don't know who's going to be the point guard if they are going to run a point guard because it seems like Devin Booker is going to remain the quote unquote starting point guard. And as a result, I think you have probably Jalen Green then at shooting guard. You have yourself Dillon Brooks then at the small forward position. And I just think right there, that means Colin Gillespie, even though I think Jared Butler should be the starter at point guard if they do, because they could run. Colin Gillespie is kind of like the utility guy, can do a little bit, jack of all trades, master of none. Jordan Goodwin's the defensive Swiss Army knife. Jared Butler's the offensive guy. And that's just kind of how I see it. They have 3 two-way guys in Isaiah Livers. Love CJ Huntley. He's going to be an underrated, like, massive, massive wingspan. I think it's like 7'11". It's huge. And Kobe Bryant is going to be maybe the two-way equivalent of Jalen Wells, like the poor man's version. Love Rasheer Fleming. And Jose Guadaro and Nick Richards are solid backups to Mark Williams and Maluach. So I think this team has some depth and also some trade assets down the road. Either way, let's continue talking about the rest of the team. I think Nigel Hayes, who was one of the best players in Europe, coming over was a solid deal. And look, also getting Devin Booker extended, that's huge. He was somebody that we didn't know if he wanted to stick around. And knowing that he is huge. So they moved off of, obviously, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and we saw Tyus Jones, Mason Plumlee, Bazi Misic, Cody Martin, all guys leave. So this was a team that knew after missing the playoffs, 36 and 46 was their record. They struggled. The Suns, they struggled with depth, defense, consistency, and just fit with Durant, Beal, and Booker Health was shaky, chemistry faltered, and in the 2.5, 3 seasons that they were together, they never really looked like a contender. Maybe that first year, but they regressed every year. And the season ended up with a kind of a teardown decision. Durant and Beal out, and the retooling officially on. Now, the Durant trade brought back youth, some athleticism and size. Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Mark Williams, Maluach is, I would say, the all-encompassing results of them trading Durant. Now, Bradley Beal being bought out hurt, but it cleared apron space. And Brian Gregory emphasized flexibility and long-term building. And this is a stark departure from the previous Big Three era that Matt Ishbia forced James Jones, the previous GM, who had built the finals team under Monty Williams, aka head coach Chris Paul. So now the front office moved aggressively in the draft, and talking with Phoenix Suns, or general manager of the Phoenix Suns, Brian Gregory, talked with Rich Paul to get Rasheer Fleming as their sleeper pick. So we mentioned it before. Dillon Brooks, Ryan Dunn, Jalen Green, Devin Booker, starting lineup. Mark Williams, hopefully, Maluach, Nick Richards, and maybe a little bit of CJ Huntley, who's on a two-way as the big man's behind them. At the wings, I think a nice dose of, I think Fleming's going to be a switch big who can moonlight at the three. They have Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, Nigel Hayes-Davis, I think a little bit of Kobe Brea, Isaiah Livers. Then you have at guard, Gillespie, Allen, Goodwin, Butler. I think David Duke, I like him. I don't know if he's going to get a true run on this team, but Kobe Brea definitely will be. And I think the team has multiple young upside players. We've talked about it outside of Booker and Jalen Green, Maluach, Rasheer Fleming, Ryan Dunn. I think Jared Butler's somebody. Rasheer Fleming's another one that I mentioned earlier. I mean, Nigel Hayes could be nice. CJ Huntley. And they've been able to have some defensive players be brought in. Obviously, Ryan Dunn already here. Oso Iguodala's not a great defender, but he's a one who tries. But Brooks, Fleming, I think also Mr. Jordan Goodwin, Colin Gillespie, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen are all good defenders in their own right. And they gain some flexibility with draft picks and cap exceptions. Now, look, there's no true star. There's health concerns with Williams and other players. And there's going to be questionable shot selections. Like, I'm going to be honest, Jalen Green and Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks will probably have some growing pains when the season starts. And that will be something Jordan Ott, as a coach, will have to figure out. He's going to face the challenge of developing players while keeping Booker engaged and emphasizing defense, transition play, and leaning on Dillon Brooks and Dunn for that identity, while also installing an offense that Booker is the heliocentric focus of, but the rest of the players can figure it out. And they're going to have to continue to do salary cap gymnastics to get over the dead money that Bradley Beal limits them. And yeah, there's going to be a bunch of unproven depth, but patience will be key. And I think expectations are hopefully like a play-in spot at best, while not being like a completely terrible lottery team, as they're above the tax, below the second apron, but above the first at $200 million. They probably might make a move to get below the first. I wouldn't be surprised, because they're just little over $3 million away. They still have their non-taxpayer mid-level exception and biannual that they can use in a trade. 3.6 from Micic and 3.2 from Okogie in trade exceptions. With Booker extended, Green on $33 million, Dillon Brooks at $22 million. They have some big contracts on the books already, and the buyout of $20 million dead cap annually through 2030 from Bradley Beal limits the flexibility, but the Suns have been able to consolidate some draft picks to be able to retool. Maluach is what I've said is like a DeAndre Jordan lanky DeAndre Jordan, JaVale McGee kind of thrown together as a 7'2" athletic, rim running, defensive, kind of, a little bit of a project big man. That everything goes well, he's going to be an all defensive player. I don't know if the offensive is ever going to be fully figured out, as he was heralded as someone who's going to be next Giannis. And Rasheer Fleming's really a good sleeper pick. I think he can be kind of like a Chris Boucher mixed with because I think he has a little bit more perimeter skill than people give him like credit to. So that's something that I thought. And he's someone that I thought was a late first round pick. His ability to shoot the three ball, put a little bit of the ball on the deck, and grab the boards and defend and be a weak side rim protector. Great. And then they got one of the best shooters in the draft, Nicola Rea, which I love. So watch out for Ryan Dunn to be the defensive ace who could maybe take the next step of becoming better on offense and maybe follow the footsteps of like Herb Jones and become a player like that. Jalen Green could fully flourish into like a Zach LaVine type level player with a change of scenery and might become more consistent as we saw at that end of run with the Rockets. And if Kamal Maluach can see rotation minutes, his rim protection and rebounding ability could flash early. And the biggest thing, we said it already, Jalen Green, former number 2 pick, entering this prove it phase. This is them betting on that. Even if they don't want him long term, can he take that next step, become a dynamic scorer consistently, and be a stabilizing force next to Booker? He has the athleticism and the shot creation to do it and fits the retooling, but it's the efficiency, defense, and just locking in, which will help him improve from being just more than a bridge or stopgap player to someone that either is a long-term asset or someone that could potentially be traded for a superstar. Now, I don't think the Suns are contenders. Now, they might not even make the playoffs, but the play-in isn't totally out of reach. They're not looking to win it now, but it's about developing Green, William, Maluach, and Fleming. And that's all around Booker. Obviously, several future picks intact, Phoenix is positioning itself for flexibility and possibly pivot back to contention in the next 2 or 3 years. So we're looking if Maluach, Fleming, and the other young guys can be able to play early. Will Jalen Green be able to figure out his shot selection and become a consistent player, become an all-star? And will Devin Booker buy into this rebuild? I wouldn't even say it's a rebuild, but retooling, and be patient to stick around. And will Royce O'Neal, Grace Allen, or Dillon Brooks become trade bait for picks? I think they're going to win probably 30 games. Maybe they push for 40 and maybe get into the play-in, but Phoenix will be competitive, I think, because Jordan Ott's a good team, a good coach, and this team has some good players, but they lack enough star power and potential proven depth to beat teams on a nightly basis. They might bottom out at the bottom of the West, but I think they might sniff the play-in at best if they have these huge leaps from Green, Mark Williams, and others. But they're probably going to be lottery bound. What are your predictions and thoughts? I want to hear your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe if you made it to the end. That's basically going to be it from me. I don't know why, but talking like this.